Welcome back to another Crowd Control. We've got a lot of board game crowdfunding going on. Yep. Some to talk about that's running, some to talk about that is launching. Where do you want to start,
I want to talk about one that's running right now that I've actually had a chance to play, and this is called How to Save a World from Burnt Island Games. I got to play this back at PAX U, and it feels like it would be a cooperative game because you're trying to save the world from destruction. But if you've seen, any kind of post-apocalyptic fiction or anything, it quickly becomes a competitive game as everyone is trying to be the one that survives, basically. This asteroid is coming to the Earth, and you're playing cards to take actions to try to save humanity. Of course, one player is going to save humanity the best, but you're doing this by investing in multiple different technologies that are different ways that you can possibly save humanity. You can work on building a giant shield around the world. You can work on building a giant laser that can shoot the asteroid out. Or you can just give up on saving Earth and work on building an ark, what's basically an ark, to just shuttle all the population to a new planet where they'll be safe. So,
is there a Bruce Willis option where they send people in a shuttle?
Yeah, to go blow up the asteroid? Possibly. No. I mean, expansion content. But
promo cards.
As you're playing, you're investing in these different technologies, and there's tracks you're going up. You're getting new cards. You're adding some cubes to a bag. There's this whole cube element where you're drawing the cubes and seeing which technology is going to be the one that ultimately works. And you get points for investing in the different technologies. So it is semi-cooperative in that you do need to actually save the world to win. And then if you do, then one player is going to win based on kind of how they've maneuvered through that situation. So if you see every player is kind of working on their shield, and maybe you want to help with the shield because you think that's going to be the method that's used, or
coattail it a little
bit.
Right,
coattail it. Or maybe you're you three work on the shield. I'm going to build this laser, and it's going to work, and I'm going to be the only one that gets points. So you really are balancing, and people are going to shift their objectives as things go. And there's a lot of pivot points where you can switch to doing things, but it's all done with an interesting worker placement card play system. It's very, very pretty to look at too, and very cool sci-fi theme.
Yeah, but if that doesn't work out and you don't save the world, you go to another planet and you try to colonize it, which is what happens in the game Seismic.
Oh, that was not a planned transition.
No, it wasn't. I came up with it on the fly. That's how good we are. No, Seismic is a game. I actually didn't watch it thoroughly, but someone was playing at the World Series of Board Gaming last year. Very colorful game.
Crazy table presence.
It's this giant board that kind of looks like the planet from Terraforming Mars-ish. It's a big round planet with a lot of hexes on it. I want to talk more about the player boards and what you're doing on your turn. There's going to be 5 turns in every round. You're going to have some cards. You have to burn a card, but then also play a card. The card itself does something, but the player board is one of the most intimidating player boards I've ever seen. It's got a massive amount of text 5 times, and it's not the same text 5 times, but it's all these bonus actions in each of these 5 slots on your player board. So in turn 1 of the round, you could burn a card, then you play a card, you do what's on the card, and then at the bottom of that card, there are icons that correspond to just some of the bonus actions that are beneath it that can also fire off. It seems like those turns would build into a very specific set of actions. Because like I said, those bonus actions are not the same even each of the 5 turns. It's different. So it's going to be, I maybe a perfect storm of things that I need to get happen. And what you're trying to do is, basically colonize this new planet.
You want to terraforming?
Well, you probably have to terraform some of it. There's some hostile environment. But the table presence, like Ryan said, is also really interesting because it's very colorful. But there's all these pieces that almost look like toys that you're playing with.
They really do.
You're building these structures and putting all these different parts of this structure in it to win the game. And it is a race. There's no points scored. This is a first person to do the thing wins the game. But that's Seismic.
Seismic. All right. The next one I want to talk about is Everbloom, and this was fun. I got to play an early version of this game.
Got to play everything.
I've played this one through multiple steps of the process. Ian Moss is the designer, and we go way back to Duelosaur Island days. But this is an innovative worker placement / area control game where you're placing your workers out. And I should say the game is gorgeous. This is another one where you're playing anthropomorphic animal style. Well, but they're less anthropomorphic.
Why not?
They're less so. They're more like animals. But they're intelligent, and they talk, and they wear clothes. It's interesting.
That sounds anthropomorphic.
But they're not human. Anyway, it's interesting. You have to check out the artwork to see.
They're anthropomorphic animals that still stand on all fours.
Well, and it's all based on this. Well, if it's a bee, it still flies and has its little wings. And anyway, they're adorable looking pieces that are your workers, and they're level 1 to 4. And as you're placing them out to take actions, you're also taking control of different areas. Each one of your workers will contribute some strength to certain areas. So you're taking actions and getting these animals, and these animals are like plant-animal hybrids. So they're like these fantasy.
These are the wildest
looking
sounding animals I've ever heard.
I mean, this game
they're
is
anthropomorphic.
Gorgeous.
They're plant-animal hybrids.
Yeah, so you're basically, it's a very difficult, it's like your animals are your characters, and then these plants, but they're also animals. So everything's an animal. They're all animals.
Are you confused yet?
Yeah, well, it gets even weirder because then you take these animals back and you pollinate them, and you collect pollen, and you come and pollinate all the flowers on these animals and help them bloom. And like that's the whole goal of the game.
Is there a dexterity element?
There's not a dexterity element. It's pretty much fully worker placement and then resource management. You're spitting out your pollen. There's area control, several different area control elements that you're trying to control that reflect different elements and things like that. So it is quite a bit, but that worker placement mechanic where your workers placed also contribute to the areas you're controlling. And then there's a revolving section of areas that are blocked off every round. So it really is a very unique worker placement system.
It sounds unique for sure.
Right, that really stretches your brain a little bit.
Yeah, the last one I want to talk about has a lot of those things. It does not have anthropomorphic hybrid animals, however. This one's called Tales of Realms and Ruins. And this game is a 2 to 4 player game where you're playing around this round board. The board's kind of cool because it's like this round planet. And it's like a very cartoony looking planet, but it's kind of this fantasy aspect to it. And that board is divided into 3 sections. Those 3 sections are these 3 realms. There's an area control mechanic where you're going to have potential area, probably more like majority in an area, to have its ongoing power. And I don't know if one player can have multiple of those, but if you control the areas, you have those powers. But it's also a deck builder, and each of those realms have a different deck from which you can take cards to build your deck. Mm-hmm. You're playing cards on your turn, doing the things. And the cards are very specific, like do this, then this, then this. They're not like, it's another one of those cards. They all seem, they feel very different and kind of unique. But those 3 realms can also flip over to this sort of like corrupted side. I don't know if that's what they call it. But if all 3 of those flip over, everybody loses. So I don't know that I'd call that co-opetition, semi-competition.
I like that.
But if everyone's going to lose if you let that happen. So obviously, maybe you're in last place and maybe you just go, I'm taking everyone down with me. We're just going to let it happen.
It's a huge table presence on that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting table presence. But those are the 4 games we wanted to talk with you about. There's one last thing. Last week we talked about Degenesis Clan Wars. We did mention a couple things. The campaign.
Yes, it's live now.
The campaign page is live now. We've learned a few more things. We wanted to specify. We called it a skirmish miniatures game.
It looks like one.
It does look like one. It's a little less of a skirmish miniatures game. I've heard it related more. It's like a campaign, one versus many. Yeah. I kind of got old school Descent vibes where someone's playing sort of the DM, if you will, against everyone else. And everyone else seems to be purely cooperating with each other. It's not like a co-opetition.
Well, yeah, this is when we got a chance to look at the page before it went live, so we didn't have the inside access. Yeah. Now that it's live, we're like, oh, okay, a much deeper understanding, and it looks very cool. I think we're going to try.
I still love the look of it. If we can we might get our hands on either a prototype or at least some materials to bring you a little bit more information and deep dive it, if we can. But we just wanted to make that correction from last week. Is that our first correction?
No, I'm sure
it's the first time we've corrected. Well, it's not the first time we've made a mistake. It's definitely not the first time we've
made a mistake. But a lot of times when a game hasn't, sometimes we don't have any more information than anybody. We just like to report what we're seeing or
we just make
hearing.
It up.
But a lot of times, some of these games, we only get to look at the campaign page or what's on BGG, and that's really all we've got to go on. So.
Anyway, that's what we wanted to talk about this week. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table. Come back next week. We'll probably have another episode. Yeah, we know of a couple games that we're going to be
next
covering.
Next week's a little bit bigger, too.
We have a little bit more of a crystal ball for what's happening in the next month or so. But like I said, make sure everyone has fun at the table until then, and we'll see you then.